I'm Al, I'm Al McFarlane, and welcome to a cameo presentation at the A. Philip Randolph Institute National Education Conference at the Radisson Blu Hotel at Mall of America. I'm pleased to have as my guest right now Brother Fred Mason Jr. He's a board member of APRI. Fred, welcome to Minnesota, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Brother Al, and it is indeed a pleasure to meet you after phone conversations. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
We did a wonderful phone interview on KFAI last week, the beginning, I think, of a great relationship. What you're doing is great work. The A. Philip Randolph Institute, an amazing organization. This is an amazing event here at the Mall of America. What's going on this week?
Well, the main thing that's going on, we will probably have about 700 labor and community leaders attending the conference, but even more impressive is the fact that we have 165 young people from all over the country. Many of them, this is their first opportunity to get outside of their city, much less outside of their state. So we bring these 165 people together on scholarship. They don't pay anything for that.
Why is it so important to introduce the labor movement to young people? I think too often many elements of our history, because we're so comfortable with having done the work, we fail to pass the analysis, the story along to future generations. But you are not failing to do that. You're intentional. Tell me about that.
Well, it probably has something to do with my history. I tell people, and it's the truth, that it took me 11 years to graduate from college. I grew up in a very poor, segregated rural part of Virginia. Fortunate enough to attend Morgan State College, involved myself in the civil rights movement back in the mid-60s. 65 formed the Organization of African American Students at Morgan State University, and some of the demands that we were making on the college at that time. We stopped the state of Maryland in 1965 from putting Morgan State University in this big consortium under the University of Maryland system, because we knew then that if that happened, Morgan would be further diminished. So we fought that, and we rallied the students and the communities, and we secured that as a victory. Recognizing that most of our folks, most black folks, were workers, I became convinced that if we're going to make further progress, we needed to organize black workers at the workplace. Dropped out of college, first union job was in 1969 as a member of the United Steelworkers, working as a laborer. Got laid off, spent about 10 years as a UAW member working on the assembly line. So my roots are honed in the understanding of agricultural workers in the South. My grandfather was a tenant farmer, honed in the understanding of the factory workers in the urban areas, and seeing what has happened to so many communities across the country. I mean, folks that left the South, migrated to places like Detroit, and all that they were seeking was a better livelihood. Through no fault of their own, they found themselves unemployed because corporate leaders, corporate America, found it more expedient to move those corporations to non-union states, to move them out of the country, putting our people at risk, putting our people out of work. A whole lot of dreams deferred. People that believed the saying that hard work and thrift and you can make it. People that were disappointed because they could no longer afford the house that the good industrial job was paying for, could no longer plan to send their kids to college. So when people say, what's wrong with black people, as if we were in charge of this, we have to organize for greater power. So that's where 72 years old, I'm still trying to make a contribution.
Well, you're making a great contribution. This organization, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, is a powerful organization. And the namesake, A. Philip Randolph, again, we did this before, but it's always worth reminding people this man's great vision and great work. we sometimes forget that this idea of organizing a mass movement and thousands of people in protest is not a new idea. And Brother Randolph did it again and again and again.
I'm telling you, in 1940s, country preparing to go to war, willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of lives in the pursuit of this so-called notion of democracy, while still maintaining segregation to a large extent in this country. Randolph said, if you want our people to participate in producing these weapons, you have to integrate the defense industry. Roosevelt said, make me do it. Randolph said, I have 10,000 black people on your doorstep. Roosevelt procrastinated. Randolph said, I'll have 100,000. 6 days before the event was to take place, President Roosevelt signed an executive order integrating the defense industry. What makes that significant is now you have masses of black people, many of them migrating from the South to the industrial north. Now they have a foot in the door by executive order. People were able to get those jobs and plan for a future. A couple years down the road, second March on Washington, President Truman is the president. So we have secured this great victory in the defense industry. Randolph said, we still have a problem because you are maintaining a segregated military. So you know what, President Truman? You need to desegregate all aspects of the military. Truman procrastinated. Randolph said, we will organize the power of black people to achieve this. President Truman ended up signing Executive Order 8802, desegregating all of the military. Now, what makes that significant? Because it wasn't just the military that got desegregated. It was so many other aspects of government and public service work that provided good paying jobs for our folks. The idea of now, you know, we can move from the cotton fields, which is honorable work, the cornfields, which is honorable work, but we're in a different situation. And we still have the right to dream. Randolph made that happen. It was unions that fought for the 8-hour day, for overtime. I'm reminded, as a former executive of a healthcare workers union, that in 1968, nursing home workers, hospital workers were not covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act. So you had wage and hour laws, but they were excluded. Senator Troy Bailey fought to have those folks considered along with everybody else as regular workers, demanding at least a minimum wage and a certain degree of benefits.
And our people were in that field.
Our people were in that field, that's right. That's right, so we have knocked down all of those barriers. SEIU continues that fight to make these healthcare jobs honorable and well-paying jobs, and we applaud that. They have led this fight for 15, and APRI activists all over the country have supported that. I think that we've passed ordinances in about 26 jurisdictions saying the minimum wage will be $15 an hour.
Fred Mason, let me ask you to close with this thought. You mentioned earlier you've got over 160 young people here. So what's the mission? What's the vision? Why is it important to connect? And what do you want to have these young people move forward in building communities, building families, building careers, fortified by knowledge that they will gain with you and members of APRI?
Okay. In Baltimore City, where I live, the first instance of first use or misuse of drugs. Not necessarily heroin or cocaine, but oftentimes prescription drugs is 13, right? If you go through any of our large urban areas, you will find young people involved in other activities. A. Philip Randolph Institute offers them another alternative. So we have a couple people here as young as 8 years old. So we are reaching out and not just saying that the youth are our future, but we are putting them in a situation where we can interact with them, where they can see positive, strong black women and men.
Mm-hmm. Brother, thank you so much.
Thank
Continued success. Keep up the good job.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm Al McFarlane, Conversations with Al McFarlane. Great conversation. You can be part of this event. The A. Philip Randolph Institute National Education Conference continues here at Mall of America at the Radisson Blu Hotel through Saturday, I think through Sunday of this week. Go online and find out, but be part of this. Great information, great activity. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you later today.